A cold wind marking the end of autumn swept through the streets of Brookline, a suburb of Boston. In her Georgian-style mansion nestled in this upscale neighborhood, Catherine Morrison was absorbed in putting the finishing touches on a handmade necklace. Her delicate fingers carefully combined freshwater pearls and rose quartz. Her technique revealed both the pride of a craftsperson and the sensitivity of an artist. "Almost done," she whispered just as the doorbell rang. "Mother-in-law again." Catherine tensed instinctively. Marian Hastings' visits had become routine, occurring 2 or 3 times a week. Each time, she would rearrange the household furnishings, override instructions to the servants, and gradually squeeze Catherine's space smaller and smaller. As expected, the maid showed in Marian, dressed in a Chanel tweed suit with a Hermès scarf at her neck. Her very posture exuded the pride of being born into one of Boston's oldest families. "Catherine, I have important social matters to discuss today." Marian gracefully took a seat, placing her expensive handbag on a chair by the fireplace. Catherine hastily began clearing away her jewelry-making tools. "Oh, never mind those little handmade toys. This is about the charity event at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum." At the words "handmade toys," Catherine inwardly smiled wryly. Her business, Treasured Gems, was a well-regarded handmade jewelry shop on Newbury Street. It was work she took pride in, built on skills and artistic sense she had taught herself after growing up in a working-class family. Catherine's parents ran a small grocery store in the Boston suburbs. Though not wealthy, she had grown up in a loving home and developed values that placed family bonds above all else. Those values were being tested bit by bit in her current life. "By the way, when is Alex coming home?" Marian asked. "I'm not sure. He's been coming home late recently." Catherine had come to accept her husband Alex's absence as a matter of course. A senior analyst at a major Boston securities firm, he was a brilliant man with both a Harvard degree and an MBA. He appeared to be the ideal gentleman, competent at work. Catherine still vividly remembers their meeting 3 years ago at the upscale restaurant, Le Maison, on Newbury Street. She was there for a friend's birthday when Alex, who had just finished dining with clients, happened to be seated at the next table. He struck up a conversation after noticing the handmade necklace she was wearing. That night, Alex was drawn to Catherine's refined aesthetic sense and sincere personality, while Catherine was captivated by his intellectual charm and gentlemanly manner. They became engaged after 6 months of dating. At the time, Marian said, "I've gained a lovely daughter," while secretly opposing it fiercely. For her, who claimed descent from Mayflower passengers and was a pillar of Boston society, a daughter-in-law from the working class was hard to accept. 3 years into the marriage, life appeared peaceful on the surface. However, anxiety was growing inside Catherine's heart. Visits to her family home were gradually restricted, and contact with old friends diminished. Alex came home later and later, and even weekends became times of absence, justified by work. The changes in her husband had come gradually. Initially, Alex would visit Catherine's shop on holidays and show interest in her work, but now he had come to dismiss her work as just a hobby. Behind this shift was always Marian's influence. Alex's submissive attitude toward his mother's words might have been a habit from childhood. Marian, who had taken over after her investment banker husband's death and was known publicly as a society figure devoted to charity work, harbored a cruel and controlling nature beneath the surface. Her obsession with family lineage and social status manifested as excessive expectations for her son. Catherine gazed out the window. Golden ginkgo leaves were falling in the street. She felt as if her once free life was quietly slipping away like those leaves. However, deep in her heart lay hidden strength. Though gentle and reserved by nature, she could face unreasonable situations with firm resolve. That strength would become a small ray of hope for the trials ahead. Continued in next part due to length. In the spring of their second year of marriage, Catherine confirmed her long-awaited pregnancy. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she looked at the 2 lines on the pregnancy test in the morning silence. The cherry tree visible from Treasured Gems Atelier was dancing with pale pink petals. The scene was filled with hope for the new life about to begin. That evening, when she quietly told Alex upon his return home, he showed rare emotion and embraced her. "I'm going to be a father." Those words carried a warmth unimaginable from his usual cool demeanor. Catherine caught a glimpse, if only for a moment, of the gentle Alex from their early marriage. However, that happy moment would be enveloped in an subtle atmosphere with Marian's arrival. The next day, Marian arrived earlier than usual, carrying an expensive bouquet of ranunculus. Her perfect Hermès scarf and Chanel tweed suit embodied her position as a pillar of Boston society. After words of congratulations, Catherine, came words that seemed to determine the future. "It must be a boy, of course. The Hastings heir. We must raise the child to be worthy of our lineage. For prep school, it must be Phillips Academy. Then Harvard. It's our family tradition." The tiny life in Catherine's womb was barely a few centimeters long, yet its life path was already being decided. The historic buildings along the Charles River, Harvard Yard, these images were already being painted as the future of her unborn child. After the pregnancy was confirmed, Marian's controlling attitude intensified further. It began with the designation of the hospital. Massachusetts General Hospital is the only option. A child of this family needs the finest medical care. The most historic private hospital in Boston. Its white buildings held a history of generations of Boston Brahmins being born there. Marian arranged for a personally trusted nurse, Lucy Parker. The experienced nurse in her late 40s always showed a submissive attitude before Marian. Catherine found strange the shadow that occasionally flickered in her eyes. Marian always accompanied her to prenatal checkups. Her mother-in-law's presence invaded even the most private space of the examination room. It was Marian who received all explanations about Catherine's condition and the fetus's status directly from Nurse Lucy. Catherine felt as if she were becoming a transparent existence. "Catherine, I've told your parents not to come for a while," Marian announced one day as if it were perfectly natural. The family ring passed down through generations gleamed on her hand as she held an expensive teacup. "We don't want unnecessary stress from people who don't understand this family's dignity. You understand that's best for the baby, don't you?" Catherine could only nod silently. Her parents, working at their grocery store, were overjoyed about their first grandchild. They called every weekend to check on the baby. Her mother was knitting tiny socks, and her father was crafting a wooden chair for the baby. However, even these expressions of love gradually faded under Marian's cold gaze. Alex's returns home became even later as the pregnancy progressed. His figure in expensive suits became increasingly distant to Catherine. "I need to earn more, especially during this important time," he would make excuses, while being absent even on holidays for work. His words of concern for Catherine's condition grew fewer day by day. She spent more nights alone, feeling the baby's movements while staring at the ceiling. As autumn deepened, Catherine's labor began under the trees of Boston Common, now tinged with fall colors. During the 12 hours of difficult labor, Alex was absent. In the middle of an important deal, was his reason. It was Nurse Lucy who held Catherine's hand in the delivery room. "Just a little more, just a little more." There was something unsettling in that voice. The white ceiling, the smell of disinfectant. The regular beeping of the heart monitor. These all blurred together in Catherine's consciousness. Just after midnight, the baby finally cried out. Outside the window, the autumn wind rattled the hospital's old window panes. "It's a girl." At that announcement, a new nurse witnessed Marian's expression cloud over in the waiting room. Her fingers gripped her expensive suit collar tightly, seeming to betray anger. But at that moment, Catherine was filled with joy as she held her child. The small but definite weight of life. The slightly opened eyes looked just like Catherine's. "Emma," Catherine whispered. Her grandmother's name. At that moment, moonlight streaming into the hospital room gently illuminated the baby's cheeks. However, this happy moment didn't last long. 2 days after the birth, Nurse Lucy visited the hospital room. Her expression carried a dark shadow. The sound of expensive leather shoes creaking on the hospital floor brought an ominous feeling. "Mrs. Morrison, we need to talk." What was revealed then was shocking. The baby shows signs of possible developmental disabilities. Catherine held her child tightly. There were no specific explanations for her question, "What symptoms?" Just a string of vague words. No presentation of test results showing medical evidence. Lucy's gaze was constantly directed toward Marian, who stood in the corner of the room. Marian, who was present for this announcement, sighed with an expression that seemed to say, "As expected." Her reaction was as if she had anticipated something. Her fingers unconsciously fiddled with her expensive pearl necklace, betraying her inner agitation. Outside the window, the deepening autumn rain fell quietly. In the heavy atmosphere of the hospital room, Emma was breathing peacefully. Catherine, gripping her child's tiny hand, sensed the trials that were about to begin. However, at that time, no one could imagine the magnitude of the crisis that her beloved daughter would face. 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, on an early October morning, Marian suddenly proposed a trip to their Berkshire villa. In the drawing room of the Brookline mansion, shrouded in morning mist, she spoke with unusual gentleness. "Catherine, you need a change of environment. The mountain air would be very good for the baby." Those words carried a kindness unprecedented from her. Yet deep in Catherine's heart, she couldn't shake an eerie feeling. Holding Emma, she looked out the window. The leaves beginning to change color with the deepening autumn swayed like an ominous premonition. "But Emma is still." Mid-sentence, she saw Marian's expression contort for just a moment. But she quickly covered it with a smile. "Don't worry. I've arranged everything." It was said as if it were already a decided matter. On the way to the Berkshires, Catherine held Emma in the back seat of the luxury SUV. In the front passenger seat, Marion kept giving detailed instructions to the driver, while Alex stared at his smartphone next to them, occasionally typing emails for what he called final confirmation of an important deal. He never once looked at his wife and child. After about 3 hours, the car wound its way up a remote mountain road. As they threaded between mountains spectacular with autumn colors, suddenly a luxurious mountain villa appeared. The imposing 3-story building exuded dignity like a European castle. This is the Hastings family summer retreat. It has over 100 years of history. Marion's voice carried obvious pride. Entering the grounds, they could see the sheer cliff behind the building. Beyond the deep valley stretched mountains dyed in autumn colors. A beautiful view, but its depth was enough to send chills down one's spine. Even after arriving at the villa, Marion continued issuing rapid-fire instructions. Room arrangements, meal times, walking routes. Everything was decided according to her will. Catherine's opinion was never sought once. "Emma, it's okay. Mama will protect you." While soothing Emma in the bedroom, Catherine whispered softly. The baby seemed very healthy, contrary to the hospital's diagnosis. There were no signs of the possible developmental disabilities that Nurse Lucy had mentioned. Rather, Emma's eyes were full of curiosity, responding sensitively to surrounding sounds and light. As dusk approached, the villa was bathed in orange sunlight. Under the cloudless sky, the autumn-colored trees seemed to shine in the sunset. In the living room lined with luxurious furnishings, Catherine was smiling gently at Emma. That's when it happened. Enough of this charade. Catherine shuddered at the sudden shout. Turning around, she saw Marion glaring like a leopard. Her expensive tweed suit appeared blood-red in the sunset light. It's unthinkable to welcome a disabled grandchild into this family. Marion advanced with an expression transformed as if she were a different person. Her eyes showed madness that had been hidden until now. Anything that taints the Hastings bloodline should disappear. In the next instant, Marion snatched Emma from Catherine's arms. Caught off guard by the unexpected action, Catherine froze for a moment. In her body, not yet fully recovered from childbirth, she desperately tried to follow. "Give Emma back. Please." Her anguished cry echoed through the villa's grand hall. Catherine stumbled and fell onto the expensive Persian carpet. Beside her, Alex remained deeply seated in his leather chair, smoking a cigar. "Mother is right. This is the best solution." His voice held not a trace of its former warmth. The pale cigar smoke wavered in the evening air. Marion threw open the glass doors leading to the wide terrace and headed straight for the cliff's edge. The clear autumn air rushed into the room. "Goodbye, you were never meant to be part of the Hastings family." Catherine tried to crawl forward, but her legs wouldn't obey. Marion's arm rose. Emma's tiny body was silhouetted against the sunset. "Emma!" Catherine's scream echoed through the deep valley. The cry gradually weakened, reverberating multiple times through the valley. The autumn-colored trees swayed in the wind, spreading an unfeelingly beautiful evening scene. The small life thrown toward the cliff bottom disappeared into the autumn sunset. Marion's profile, gripping the terrace railing, cast an eerie shadow in the sunset light. Only the smoke from Alex's cigar wavered quietly in the still air. Immediately after Emma disappeared over the cliff, Catherine's trembling hand dialed 911. Trying to explain the situation to the operator, she couldn't form words properly. "The baby, my mother-in-law threw the baby from the cliff, please, help." Through tear-blurred vision, Marian and Alex were already gone. Only the sound of a luxury car's engine broke the evening silence as it drove away. Leaving behind the cold words, "We'll explain to the police ourselves." Berkshire County Police and local rescue teams arrived one after another with sirens wailing. In an instant, the quiet villa became chaotic. Rescue team leader Jim Collins immediately grasped the situation and requested a helicopter. In this season, when autumn days end early, time was short. "Prepare the lighting equipment. Medical team on standby." Instructions flew back and forth. Police set up tape around the villa and began their investigation. Catherine, wrapped in a blanket from the paramedics, stared blankly at the cliff bottom. "Ma'am, could you tell us the details once more?" a detective gently asked. Behind him, the gardener Thomas Wilson had begun giving important testimony. "I was working in the greenhouse. I saw everything through the window. The night deepened. Search floodlights illuminated the valley as rescue team members carefully descended. The helicopter's searchlight swept across the valley." Catherine's heart continued to race along with Emma's name. Near dawn, a sudden phone call. It was from Marian. "Catherine. It's terrible." Her voice was trembling. From emotional turmoil, or was it acting? "The baby falling from the cliff was an accident. I lost my balance. Everyone should think it was a sad accident." From the other end of the phone, local news breaking news could be heard. At the news flash, "Infant found at Berkshire Cliff, miraculously unharmed," Marian's voice suddenly changed. "Yes, it was an accident. However, the truth was already becoming clear. Gardener Thomas had witnessed the entire incident from the greenhouse. Moreover, the villa's security cameras had recorded the decisive moment. The events on the terrace, Alex's cold attitude as he watched while smoking a cigar, everything had been recorded. And the miracle came with dawn. A local mountain climber out for an early morning walk heard a baby's cry from among the dense trees. Emma was caught about 30 feet down the cliff, protected as if by thick undergrowth and soft young tree branches. "I hear a baby crying. Over here." The rescue team carefully approached. Emma was miraculously unharmed. Her small body was without a scratch, as if protected by angels. Detailed examinations at Massachusetts General Hospital found no abnormalities. Rather, her development was ahead of her age. The possibility of developmental disabilities that Nurse Lucy had claimed was revealed to be a complete fabrication. And as the police investigation continued, the full extent of the horrifying plan came to light. Lucy Parker, unable to bear the weight of her conscience, confessed. "Mrs. Hastings offered me $500,000 in hush money to make a false diagnosis." Her testimony led to even more shocking revelations. Alex had a mistress from another prominent Boston family, Caroline Winslow. They had already been secretly living together in a luxury apartment in Back Bay. The plan had been meticulous. Marian and Alex had crafted a perfect scheme to drive Catherine away. They would fabricate the fact that she had given birth to a disabled child, break her down mentally, and finally make it appear as if she had killed her child due to postpartum depression. Alex had even arranged to remarry Caroline. Lucy's confession illuminated a bottomless darkness. The white corridors of the expensive hospital, the elegant villa, the perfect appearances. Behind them all, an incredible conspiracy had been unfolding. "I'm so deeply sorry for what I did to Mrs. Morrison and her daughter." As Lucy tearfully apologized in the examination room, warm autumn sunlight streamed through the window. Emma slept peacefully in her mother's arms, bathed in that light. It was as if her angelic innocence was illuminating the darkness of this world. On the day the verdict was delivered in the stately courtroom of Berkshire County Court, golden sunlight filtered through the high windows. Defendant Marian Hastings, attempted murder. Defendant Alex Hastings, conspiracy and obstruction of rescue. Defendant Lucy Parker, falsification of medical records. As the judge's voice resonated, Catherine held Emma close. Her 3-month-old daughter's cheeks were touched with a healthy pink glow. Marian had lost her former dignity and hung her head. Her luxury brand suit now seemed hollow. Alex accepted his sentence without showing any emotion until the end. Lucy, from her guilty conscience, had admitted her crimes and received consideration in sentencing. In the divorce proceedings, Catherine was granted full custody. Furthermore, she received substantial compensation and child support, along with the Berkshire villa where the incident had taken place. It's finally over. As she left the courthouse, Catherine felt a strange lightness in her heart. As the truth came to light, her story garnered significant attention. The Boston Globe was the first to run a feature article, followed by national media. On social media, the hashtag #StandWithCatherine spread rapidly. Treasured Gems was flooded with orders from across the country, along with messages of support. Catherine's handmade jewelry became more than just accessories, they became symbols of women's strength and dignity. Each piece contains our story. Her words in an interview resonated with many people. The small shop on Newbury Street expanded into an online store, receiving orders from around the world. Catherine decided to transform the Berkshire Villa into a support facility for mothers and children. Named Emma's Haven, it became a shelter for mothers and children in difficult situations. The former site of tragedy was transformed into a place of hope. "Mama, look." On the day Emma took her first steps, Catherine's parents were there too. The family grocery store had become Emma's favorite place. She smiled happily, sitting in the wooden chair her grandfather had made, wearing the sweater her grandmother had knitted. True happiness isn't about family lineage or social status. One evening, Catherine whispered while watching the setting sun through the shop window. New necklaces were displayed on the counter. Each gem sparkled in the sunset light, suggesting the beginning of a new story. That day, many mothers and daughters visited Treasured Gems. Catherine smiled quietly as she listened to their conversations. In the soft light flowing through the store, Emma sparkled like a jewel. The future shone with certainty, along with this small life.